Hello,
Hello.
hello. Here we are.
Here we are indeed.
Nice to see you,
So we are
Minna.
ready. Nice to see you, Sophie, as well.
And we are
Welcome.
here today for our fourth Flourish Financially conversation.
Indeed. It is already the fourth one. That's right. It's quite exciting
Goes
that,
fast.
and the topic is a very exciting one as well. Emotions, money, and triggers. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too, believe me. Cool. So it's so great to be here today. And we're going to start with our usual short introduction. And I'm Dr. Sophie Jablonski, and I focus on emotional intelligence and financial psychology. And today, Minna and I are going to dive into something that I think we've all felt at some point, which is that how our emotions shape the way we think and the way we manage money.
Thank you. And my name is Minna Schmidt, and I'm a financial well-being coach. I help women build financial freedom and security. And together, Sophie and I will today walk you through how our emotions can impact our financial habits and our financial decisions for the better or for the worse. And also how you can use kind of your emotional awareness to build a healthier relationship with money. So, really excited to have you here with us today.
Yes, another one. So before we dive right in, can we check perhaps if anybody's there? Does someone want to perhaps post quickly in the comments that they're with us and they're checking this video, this live stream? Perhaps we continue and it will keep people joining us.
Yes, the comments field should be available for you. So, anytime you have a question or some remark or comment or anything that comes to your mind, you can use this comments field, and we should be able to see it here in the studio as well. And yeah, will be really great to.
Oh, hello. Thank you, Julia. We're so pleased. We were fearing we would be alone. So that's good. Great. We're on. We're so
Very good.
excited.
Very good. I
So,
know there were a lot of people who were very interested in this topic. So let's hope that people can be joining. I think there's more people
hello,
joining
hello. Hi,
in.
Françoise.
Hi, Julia, and hi, Francoise. Welcome.
Sounds
Very nice to
good.
have you here with us. And I think there will be more people joining as well. I think we had, I don't know, 35 people signed up or something like that.
So perhaps a few words on the structure, how we want to talk about this quite expensive topic of emotions and money. We thought we'd start by talking about understanding a little bit the difference between triggers and reactions and actually emotions, which are kind of sandwiched in between. And that's a very important distinction. So that would be the first thing. And then we wanted to go in the direction of when the emotional connection to money becomes problematic, because I think a lot of us encounter this situation or in people that we have around us, and what this means and possibly what we can do about it. So that would be the next topic, focusing a bit more on the negative side of emotions and how we can, with some thought work, because we're here to talk about integrative financial health and psychology, how we can break free from certain negative emotions, the ones that are the most pervasive. And as a last point before the Q&A, we wanted to also see how we can cultivate positive emotions about money or about our money situation, about our finances, so that we can become more empowered. I think that's it, Minna. Did I say it correct?
Yes. Shall we dive in? Shall we dive in?
Let's do that. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start, and I wanted to talk about the fact that we've all had moments where something about money or finances triggers a strong emotional reaction, right? And it's often linked to past experiences. It can be family stories, or even sometimes it's societal beliefs that we absorb and we haven't even realized that we have it in us. And for example, maybe you felt guilty after buying something for yourself, even when you could definitely afford it. Or you've been anxious about the future, you're unsure if you're saving or you're planning enough. So all of these triggers are actually thoughts, and when we have this thought, we get a certain emotion. So the emotions themselves, they lead us to react, to take action in different ways. And it can be avoiding financial decisions. So the action can be the inaction. And this would be because of the fear, or we could also go on and start being on a shopping spree or something like that, from impulsion, obviously. And the way we work on this with psychology is really, there's this model that I like to use, and we've discussed that before, Minna. It's the so-called CTFAR model. And do not worry that we can share with you. I think there's a banner, Minna, with the model, so where you can find more resources. But basically, it's inspired from cognitive behavioral coaching. And why it's so important, it's because we really need to make the distinction between the circumstances, which are, in a way, the cold, hard facts about our financial circumstances at the top of the model, and our thoughts. Our thoughts are our judgments, and they can be coming from the beliefs that we were mentioning a few minutes ago. And what happens is that most of us, we think that our emotions are created because of the circumstances, because of the facts, because of the figures, when in fact, it's the way we think about these circumstances that is creating a certain emotion. And it's very important, because when we realize that, it suddenly gives us a lever to be more empowered by working on our thoughts, by working and being more intentional, so we can choose how we think, be more empowered emotionally, and therefore have an action that we've chosen intentionally.
Yes, this is very important for us once we kind of recognize these triggers, right? Then we can actually start to change how we react. So instead of going to those old patterns of, responding to an issue with fear or avoidance, we can actually respond intentionally. And this is essential for making sound financial decisions. But maybe before we head more into the solution, let's also understand really the problem, right? So let's talk about it. When does our emotional connection to money become problematic? Like you also already mentioned a bit these things like financial denial, or spending too much money, or even financial dependence on someone else. And these behaviors, I mean, they might start from an emotional place, such as shame or fear, but they actually do have some long-term financial consequences as well. What do you think, Sophie?
Well, I mean, what I think is always with a view of not being too judgy, because I think very often we are using our own judgment against ourselves when we realize that perhaps we're not so aligned with our intentions with regards, for example, money, or we feel like we cannot control our emotions. So what I was trying to explain with the model is that in fact, with the same circumstance, you can have different people with very different emotions just because the way they think about it. So you were giving this example. So when you avoid to look at your bank statements, I mean, I know that I was doing that for a while, so I'm not going to hide. And you delay paying bills because you feel overwhelmed, for example. Or so that's what you were saying with financial denial. And this would come from the feeling of anxiety, of fear. And another way is that maybe you are trying to avoid certain emotions and you're going to spend money, or in fact, to try to distract yourself. So all of these behaviors, unfortunately, they can hold us back from making sound financial decisions. And by sound, I mean not that we are judging what is sound, but actually blocking a person from doing the decisions that they themselves want to do and think is important for them. And that's where it's really tricky. But the good news is that when you recognize the emotions and you're able to understand them, perceive them without judging them, then you're in a better position to change the behavior once you've been able to change, for example, the emotion. And you can reflect on that. So that's the work that is really offered here. And in fact, Minna and myself, we have developed a very nice free resource, a guide that we'll be sharing with the people who are here today, and probably we will put as a comment on the LinkedIn page. It's a few pages on how you can do that very pragmatically in a few steps with specific emotions. And I'm not going to dive into detail right now, but I'll be touching a few words later in the presentation when we talk about what we can do with regards to specific negative emotions.
Yes, this is a really great point. And the more we bring these emotions to the surface, the more we can work through them. And that's kind of where your real financial freedom and financial confidence begins. I think it's important for everyone here to know that shame isn't something that we have to carry forever. It's just a part of our journey, and it can absolutely be overcome.
Yes, and we thought here at that point in the conversation, we wanted to share possibly one story each about what shame can mean in terms of finances. And I know some of you and some of the people who are here with us today have possibly read this post I had on LinkedIn. And I was talking about how much shame has been a part of my own financial journey. And in a bit of, I would say almost a chronic way, that but I was raised in that environment where we have this quote that to live happy, you need to be hidden. Vivons heureux, vivons cachés. That's a French sentence. And there was a lot of critical sentences that I would hear regularly about people who were, in between quotes, rich or having money. And what happens is in the course of my life and of probably people that surround me, I started having quite good earning power, but I was not feeling very at ease with that, because it was taking me towards a direction where I felt I should be ashamed of having, of earning. And this compounded to a worse situation when I inherited some money from loved ones. And that was really hard at the time, but it also forced me to realize the consequences that we were talking about, because I really went into a significant time of not taking action and feeling completely overwhelmed with what I should do with that, and almost resenting also what was going on. I was not in capacity to really think clearly, at least for myself and for what I wanted to do. So I guess that's a story that can be familiar to some of us, and it's clearly going to be more familiar with more people and more women, as we know there is the the great wealth coming. We say more and more people are gonna inherit either, I mean, and more women. So we need to be a bit more equipped for that. That's my point.
Yes.
And you, Minna, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one, this shame. I mean, it is kind of it's like that. There are a lot of negative emotions that are related to having wealth, as you said, right? On the one hand, we appreciate it when, you know, things are very equal and fair between different people. I mean, I come from the Nordic countries, from Finland. You know, equality is a really big value where I come from. But this means, on the negative side, that nobody should get more than the others, right? So, for example, you know, if there's a person like you who suddenly receives an inheritance, has more wealth, maybe because they, I don't know, they did hard work and got a bonus or whatever it is, it may make them actually feel shameful or guilty. But it's sometimes also even not just a feeling inside, but sometimes even the society enforces this. And to your example, right,
Yeah.
you know, this is not me personally, but another person who had inherited money from her parents. She then decided to buy a summer house with that, which she could afford now with the inheritance. But what happened as a result was that some of her friends actually abandoned her after this, because for them it was not acceptable that this friend had now become more wealthy. She was like a new person, somehow above them, right, in some way or the other. So these feelings of jealousy, and then actually the fear that she had came true to her. So
yeah,
yes, it's terrible. Like when this, like she was kind of thrown out from the friendship circle, she felt ashamed, and you know, she could not enjoy the money that was rightly hers. So this is crazy. And you know, this thing what you mentioned, you know, if you have money you better hide it. It's one of those negative beliefs, and somehow like really the reality, right, that we face. And I'm a financial coach. I'm very proud that I'm investing. I'm very happy about it. I want to like create like a generation of women investors. But even I recognize that, you know, sometimes when I would go back home to Finland, I was ashamed to tell, you know, my parents like how much our rent costs here in Switzerland, which much more expensive, or you know how much my salary would be. Like you know, that would be like very kind of outrageous sounding sums for the people that are my dear ones from Finland. So I catch myself like trying to be more modest and trying to really not reveal everything. You know, that's not, you know, yeah. It's this strong feeling of guilt and shame that kind of prevents maybe us from doing things that we actually can earn and deserve. You know, sometimes maybe prevents us from building our financial freedom that we would like to do.
Yes, which is the point when it's kind of threatening almost, because it seems like it's nice and we're chatting here, like telling how we're feeling certain negative emotions, not just shame, but others. But in reality, why we want to bring this here is that very often we feel it's ridiculous to have these emotions. Very often we're able even to see that this is not necessarily rationally aligned with the cause of what is supposed to be the cause of the feeling. So we haven't yet seen the thought that is causing the emotion. But more than that, it shows how powerful these thoughts can be, because then the emotion is going to be the fuel of the action. And it can be action, it can be inaction, it can be reaction, it can be things we don't want to be doing. And something else that I find fascinating, because this was one side of the coin, which is basically circumstances about money and how with certain thoughts they create emotions and actions in result. The other side is how sometimes, which is a different thing, we use money, so certain money behaviors, let's say, to try and actually cope with uncomfortable emotions that we have. And these uncomfortable emotions, they may be linked or not at all with money. So this is what is called buffering. So it's not just occurring in the context of financial circumstances, but we can use money as a tool to do this emotional buffer. And it can be, for example, that to give the lighter example, possibly we are bored, and so we shop to fill the time, or something a bit maybe more deep. We feel incomplete in some way, we feel unhappy in our lives, so we buy things to fill the emotional void. And sometimes we feel unworthy, so we overspend to overcompensate. And even just before we joined that conversation, I had a fascinating comment on LinkedIn because of the post of today. Somebody was giving me the example of the golden handcuff and saying, how does that relate to somebody who is in a super high, well-paid job? Who considers that they have golden handcuffs. We don't even talk about numbers here. It depends. Different people will have different numbers for their golden handcuffs. But how does that relate to them who feel probably miserable in their job? That's how the comment was phrased, right? I'm not commenting on this. And that they are scared of leaving this job because of the money. And I thought it was interesting because it's also buffering to some extent, in the sense that the person is probably uncomfortable in the job or miserable because of reasons that have nothing to do with money, but is using the salary as a buffer for that emotion, in a way when it's not going to be a long-term way to really envisage their financial circumstances, for example. So I thought it's another way to see that, and it's very interesting. And I think we all know quite a lot of people who are in these patterns. And the trick is to be able to recognize that without judging ourselves, because with buffering, what happens is short-term consequence is positive. You get your hype of your hit, possibly of dopamine, of the positive emotion. But in the longer term, you know you're doing something you don't want to do. And so it doesn't help you.
Absolutely. And as you say, also, right, longer these behaviors go unchecked, then they can also escalate and bring, more serious financial problems. Of course, not to talk about, gambling or really like financial ruin in some case, but they are all tied kind of to these deeper unresolved emotional issues that you may have. And by the way, before
go ahead.
progress, I see that Julia has asked if you can ask questions. So I wanted
Good question.
Good question, and we would love to have a lively discussion. So please enter into these comments your questions, so then we can see them as we go along, and also comments or any thoughts that this wakes up. Please do so.
And hello, Yana.
So we have here Yana joining as well. Welcome. In the end, we will try to also open the floor for discussion so that you can really join in live to the conversation if you want. Let's see how that works. We are also trying with this new setup for the first time, so we will see how we can manage that. But definitely, at least through the comments, please ask questions, comments. That would be lovely. So we can make this as engaging as possible.
Okay. So on buffering, the last point was really about observing. The skills of observing are key. Recognizing some of these patterns that we have, to be able to observe them without necessarily judging them too harshly, so that you can change them. That's really the intention. Okay.
Absolutely. And I would actually like to ask at this point, because we're going to start to talk like, what can we do about it next? But people who are in the call or listening to this, if you would like to think a bit about yourself, have you recognized these patterns for yourself? Would you like to write into the chat or into the comments if there is something that you're kind of open to sharing what has been that kind of pattern or behavior that you've noticed yourself. It would be interesting to hear. I'm sure we all have some of them to some extent. And it's another question if we're all, aware of these type of emotions about money. Yeah.
I think for me, it was really in the buffering. I mean, I mentioned the shame before, so that's another one. But it was really this idea that I would actually restrict myself, almost punish myself, not buy myself nice things or treat myself to nice things, because I was not thinking highly of myself for a while. And that's again another form of buffering. It's like keeping it away from what I think I would fairly deserve, probably, but not allowing myself to get it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who have maybe even built quite some assets, but they feel very guilty about spending that money. Right, that's a pattern that typically comes up with many people, maybe coming from more scarcity backgrounds, right? They just feel terrible to kind of let go of that, and I can understand it. It's really not easy. It does require quite a bit of mindset work, right? And I think Julia's question, I'm just going to put it on the screen here as well. So Julia's asking, when we're talking about the shame, what would be the suggestion on addressing this, and how can we respond to this calmly, right? So that's what we're going to turn to next. Exactly. Thank you, Julia.
So I think the resource that we've prepared for this, it's a short guide, can also be a nice handout to keep with you. So we will share it in the comments of LinkedIn, because we realize we cannot really interact with the comments directly from the platform of StreamYard. So don't worry, we will share that. But in a nutshell, this is what we were going to talk about, so that's perfect. In fact, the first step is always to start with awareness, being more aware. So we don't need to necessarily be extremely literate in how we name emotion. We can also go towards much more descriptive terms in terms of the bodily sensations, because often we get an emotion that goes with the bodily sensation. But you can think in terms of textures, in terms of temperatures, in terms of like where it's located in the body. You can think in terms of colors. You can think in terms of names as well, if you feel like you have a name for that emotion. But that would be the first step, really, to try to identify it and name it as best as you can. And then, instead of thinking the emotion is directly linked to the situation, as we were saying, the facts of the situation, trying to link it to a sentence, a thought that you're having about that is creating that emotion. So, for example, I just want to give an example because it's hard to realize what it means. But in terms of a context, for example, for me, I know I was having a lot of emotional turmoil around money in my mind when I was considering leaving my job, my well-paid job, so golden handcuff. Here we call it golden cage in Luxembourg. And so the emotion that I would have when having to think about making the decision to leave is that I felt that it was really tight and it was hard to breathe. I had almost a vision that I was on a cliff and that I would fall in the void. That's like how I could describe that. And when I'm trying to relate that to a sentence in my mind, it's one of the sentences that I've used, that I've heard other people say about that as well, is that this is such a waste. And so what happens is that my emotion, which is probably one of terror almost, to be at that cliff, was about the idea of wasting something. So wasting is terrorizing for me. And I decided in time and with thought work to change that sentence. And this is something that you can do in the shorter term or in the longer term, depending how deep and how uncrusted, I don't know how to say, how the thought is, because sometimes it's really patterns that we have, but at least you notice it. So I decided to change it with something like, I am ready to reinvent myself professionally. So instead of thinking it's a waste, I decided to think I'm ready to reinvent myself. And the last step after changing the sentence is to check with the mind shift, when you read that sentence, what emotions come to you. Because probably with the new sentence, you're going to have new emotions. So, Julia, I'm not saying this, I don't know exactly the case, what exactly was creating some thoughts that would have uncomfortable emotions for you around money, but maybe that kind of process can help you. And I've spelled it out in the resource, but if it's not clear, you can always reach out and also join us later on the stage to illustrate from your own experience. Okay, I think that's what I
love
would say
that
about
example.
that.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing it. I think that really makes it very
Trying to make it
concrete in a way. I mean,
yeah.
it's different for each one of us. What are those sentences that we repeat to ourselves, those negative or destructive? I mean, to some of us, it's also things like, I'm bad with money.
Yeah.
I'm bad with money. I'm bad with numbers, or I just can't. I always spend too much. Like things like that we tell ourselves almost to punish ourselves, right? And those are not constructive. Those are not helpful. It's really something that we need to work through. Like, and the methodology that you just mentioned, this is a really a great one. And I just saw Francoise's comment here. The prospect of becoming rich can be frightening. Yes, it's this change in your identity, right? In a way, you've been always telling yourself, I am this kind of person. This is not for me. I'm not a person for investing or for money. I'm not wealthy. This is not me. And then suddenly becoming this, you're like, who am I now? What is my story, right? It's our ego, and that's a big shock.
And it's a real cognitive dissonance there, because what happens is that normally, in order to change the result that you get from the mindset model, which goes from the circumstances all the way down to the results, you need to be taking action. But the thing is that sometimes your circumstances change by external events. And so suddenly the thought that you have about it is kind of like unadapted. Makes you feel that you're not like coping very well. So that's again another case when it's important to realize, okay, it might be time to think about, how do I want to think about that?
Yes.
And
it's not easy, but it's important to do that. And of course, I should say, one of the things, by the way, that you can of course also help to go through these things. Of course, knowledge is power. Doing, for example, mindful financial planning. That's of course very helpful as well, right? You learn how to manage your money better, your emotional responses to it. So you increase your understanding about how money works and how you can manage it yourself and be confident about it. You will also feel less anxious, for sure. So that's something that I would definitely recommend. To everyone. Yeah. But maybe shall we soon we move to the conversation anyways, but should we still kind of talk a bit about the power of positive emotions that we want to cultivate with money? Things like confidence.
Yes, it's the same approach in a way, the point being, so we're gonna make it really short because we're short of time as usual. We have so many things that we want to share is that it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but positive emotions are something to cultivate. It's not something that we need to wait around and see if they come when our circumstances, for example, with money, change. And that's when intentionality is key. A bit like with negative emotions, but in that case with positive emotions. And why? Because otherwise we can risk, again, reacting in a way that is not necessarily how we would like to in the specific with the specific emotion. So it can be about financial security, about feeling peace, feeling stability, feeling self-confidence, even generosity. All of these things can be actually thought of in anticipation for our financial lives, so that at the moment when we want to yield that specific emotion, we can do that in the best possible way, and we're showing up as our best selves. So I'm using a lot of coach talk here for those of you not familiar. But if somebody wants to give an example afterwards, it will work very well to explain. I mean, it's really about, I mean, that's what you were saying, Minna. It's about spending money intentionally, right?
Yes, exactly. I have one example then on that I could share,
Okay.
but maybe we should also ask if anyone from the audience wants to share as well. So just, I know, for example, Julia, I think she had to leave already. I think so. She's just saying she was really enjoying it, and will stay connected. Very good. Anyone else, would you like to either in the comments, or we can also try to invite you here on the stage with us, if that works? Let's see.
What I will do is I will put the link to join us in the comments of LinkedIn, and that way so that would be the link.
Very good. Let's see if people will be able to join through there. Let's see.
Are we receiving that one?
So that link would come on the LinkedIn event.
I think so.
It should be there. But maybe I can, while we wait, let's see if anyone joins. You can just jump on in or send comments. If not, I could tell my example about spending money. So of course, I'm a financial coach, right? So people come to me with their financial decisions that they've made in the past, and sometimes they come to me because they feel guilty about something. They start giving to me explanations, oh, why did I, for example, decide to spend the money on I don't know, let's say somebody actually bought a holiday place, like we had in the earlier example as well. So they know that, if they buy this place, it's probably not the best use for their money in terms of financial returns. They will, park the money, the capital in there, and they could have a better return somewhere else. So they come to me and they start giving these explanations, and yeah, of course I do discuss the financial rationale with them, that why did they do this and what is the consequences. But for me, it's also very important to recognize that there are other values than just the financial numbers. So for some people, the value of having this place for their family where they can go to this special place where they immediately feel relaxed and they can really enjoy some peaceful time together, which they don't maybe have in their normal lives if they're traveling a lot, or whatever their situation is, right? This value of having this place is kind of priceless. So you can't put like a number tag on the value of this peace that they can get in that place. And they've worked so hard, they've earned in a way the right to do this. So if they can afford it, of course, this decision still shouldn't, bring them to financial ruin or something. So I'm not saying, go out and buy that villa at the seaside if you can't afford it. But if you can afford it, it's something that you can totally do. You have the power to decide about your own money according to your values and what brings you the most value, right? So you go back to those values. What do I want to spend on my money and what do I not want? And you do a conscious decision about it.
Yeah, this is brilliant.
To feel good about it within, right? Yeah.
No, I was saying this is a really...
That's another question, of course, right? So, yeah.
Now, I thought this example is really brilliant because it also takes us almost on the territory of morality. And I think with emotions, there's a lot of morality involved. And that's something that is really fascinating in the work that we do with financial psychology, and also financial planning is the same, because what you were describing is almost how she feels she should be judged on what it means to manage her money wisely. And as if, your own judgment, your own moral values would apply on her choices, when in the end, we have more freedom than that. And with generosity, for example, is another example, is really interesting because it's something that is very moral. Like, everybody says, okay, you should be generous, right? But what does it mean? And we can all define it in very different way. And sometimes it's almost like we haven't really thought about that intentionally. So it ends up being a black and white, basic, rough definition we haven't really completely done in our mind. But it can end up being like, well, you're being generous when you're giving everything to everyone all the time, which of course doesn't make any sense when you really voice it like that. But many of us have never sat down and said, okay, this is what I consider myself to be. This is when I consider myself to be generous. And that's a very important thing to do, because I think otherwise we are leaving that judgment onto also whatever layers of beliefs are out there.
Yes.
So,
Françoise comment here. She says she has often, my inner critic is asking me, do you really deserve or need this or that? Yeah, this inner critic, which is sitting on your shoulder and is looking at what you're doing, do you really need this? Should I really be doing this? And then you make some decision, yeah, I'm gonna get it, and then you feel guilty afterwards, right? That's not a nice feeling to have when you're kind of getting yourself something that you wanted to actually get. So what can help with that, at least my 2 cents, is kind of to have a very strong kind of money philosophy in a way, or some people maybe call it their money rules or something like that, you can go back to, right? For example, it could be like, I don't save money when I need to spend on my health. So if there is something, it's different for everyone, but you could have this kind of rule, like if it's about my health, even if it's a very expensive, yoga class or going to the doctor when I need to, or whatever it is, I do it. It's my money principle or money rule or so. But then other things, you might not actually spend that much because you want to also save and invest your money. But if you have very clear this kind of philosophy or principles that you can go back to and your values, and at the same time you understand also what is your financial framework, right? What can I afford? Where do I want to get to with my financial investments, for example? That gives you that framework that you can rely on, that you won't have to feel guilty. You know exactly what you want to get and you will get it when you need it. I don't know, Sophie.
And in fact, no, it's great, because I think you're preempting like that the inner voice. Because what I'm seeing here with the comment of Françoise is that the thought, when we were talking again about these layers of thoughts creating the emotion, Françoise didn't mention which emotion, so you probably guessed something, Minna. You said probably guilty or undeserving. Maybe it goes deep down to unworthy. So these are the typical ones that many of us have, and it's something that is interesting to work on. But the thought probably here is not a question. It's very often it's an affirmation. So it would be something like, I don't deserve this. And when you're having that sentence, indeed asking yourself the question with the tool, what is the emotion associated with that? And then without judging it, understanding, oh, that's why I'm feeling like that. It's because I'm thinking I don't deserve it. And now what? So do I really think I don't deserve this? Going back to the situation. Because sometimes the pattern has nothing to do with the specific situation. It's kind of something, maybe, I mean, some of us, maybe we've been taught that as kids. No, you don't deserve that. But it has nothing to do with the actual specific situation where we're at right now. So that's why this work is super powerful. It seems a bit scholar. those of you who like scholarly knowledge, you can dig deeper, but it's actually extremely powerful. And okay, I think we're reaching the end, Minna. Can't believe it.
So, any last comments? Anything from the participants? That I think otherwise we shall start to kind of wrap up, right?
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone online for joining us today. I really hope you found this conversation helpful and valuable. And of course, we'd love to continue this journey with you. So we are creating this series of money conversations for women around various different topics. And the next one is very interesting. Money and love relationships. So money in a love relationships, how does that work? We all know it is a topic that can be challenging, but we will tackle this next time. We'd love to see you in the next event. So we'll also share a link to become part of the community, and then we will inform you about the next conversations, because we really want to make sure women get this powerful relationship, a positive relationship with money. So let's keep on building financial health together.
Thank you so much, Minna. I look forward to seeing you again for another of these powerful conversations. And we invite all of those who were here today and to join us again, obviously. Françoise, I've seen your comment. I'm going to address it in maybe a specific thread of conversation in the LinkedIn chat, if that's okay. So, okay. See you soon, everyone.
Thank you so much. And
great.
have a great rest of the evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.